Hello, it's Julie from Spellbound, and today I'm going to show you how to make one of these wonderful flexible tassels made using a spiral rope technique. Now this is part of our Love Your Leftovers series of projects, and these are ideal patterns to use up lots of odds and ends. This one has got lots and lots of different sizes of toning pearls and crystals in, and this is actually part of a leaf mix from one of our mixed bags, but I've brought them together with this beautiful bead that I had left over from something else, and that's what inspired this selection. Now today I'm going to be using pearls and purple crystals to make this tassel. It's really flexible, and that's because it's based on spiral rope technique. So we've got a core of beads running down the centre, and then all of these are joined on individual stitches. It's really great fun to make, and it feels absolutely wonderful when it's complete. I hope you'll join me to make one of these wonderful, fun tassels. I've set out my beads in 3 rows, just so they'll fit on the screen. And I've got a start here, which will be the bottom of the tassel, with the 6mm and slightly bigger, going through the 8mm and slightly bigger, then 10mm and slightly bigger, all the way through. Now I haven't been absolutely strict with myself on making sure that the size graduates exactly. I can't because I've got different shapes in here, and I think it looks better with a slight amount of randomness anyway. However, having said that, where the 6mm come to the end, there's quite a jump up to the next size, so I need to blend these a little bit better. So I'm going to do a little swap around. I'm going to swap a 6mm into there, and I'll probably just swap those two as well, so it's more of a blend from the 6mm through to the larger beads. Now I've put 4 beads aside from my main selection. They're going to go right underneath the tassel top bead, so I've just put them to one side. Now I've prepared my needle. I've used about 2 meters of 9mo D, or any size D beading thread, and I've tied a keeper bead about 25 centimeters from the end, because we need a nice long tail to help reinforce the loop at the top of the tassel. And I've started my beadwork already by threading on my tassel top bead, and unusually for a spiral rope technique, I've also put on all of the core beads. So we're going to be working from the bottom of the spiral up to the top with the core beads already in situ. So when we finish, we'll be underneath the tassel top bead. Now I need to be able to calculate how many of the core beads I want, and the number of the core beads corresponds to the number of beads you want to add, these larger beads. So I started with 42 larger beads, so I've threaded on 42 of my size 8 seed beads. Needs to be 8s for these, so you've got a nice big hole for the needle to pass up and down lots of times. Now we're ready for the first stitch. So I've got 42 size 8 on, and now I'm going to add the first bead at the bottom of the tassel. I'm just going to put on 2 size 10, a small, or one of my 6mm beads, and a stopper bead. I'm going to pull through, miss out the stopper bead, and go back up through the 2 size 10 I put above, and another 4 of my core beads. So you can see I've gone up 4 core beads in total. And that's the bottom of the strand. Make sure it's relatively snug, don't put it too tight because you want flexibility. And now we're going to start with our main sequence. So I'm going to put on 4 size 10 seed beads, or 11s if you prefer. My next one on my sequence of feature beads and a stopper bead. Pull them through. I'm just going to go back up through my feature bead only. There we go. And I'm going to lie this alongside the core. I need a little bit of flexibility in that thread, so don't pull it too tight here. And I'm going to go up 3 below and 1 above my strand that I've just made. And that's the first stitch of our spiral. And we're going to repeat. So it's 4 size 10 or 11, 1 feature, 1 anchor, up the feature only, make sure you've left enough thread in the stitch so this can fall downwards, and so you go up 3 size 8 below the attachment to the new strand and 1 above it. I'm going to pull that in and push it to the same side as the previous stitch. And we'll do one more. So that's 4 size 10 or 11, 1 feature, 1 stopper. Oops. Back up the feature only. So tempting to go up those beads above. Right, let's make sure we've got everything in the right place. So these 2 are pushed to this side, and then it's up 3 below and 1 above. We push that to the same side as the previous one, so you can see you're starting to get your step sequence. Now I'm going to continue with this, and I'm going to make another 9 stitches doing exactly the same thing, and I'll be back to you to show you how the pattern develops. So I've added 9 stitches, and you can see I'm starting to get that nice clustered effect, but we're also starting to move into the larger size beads, so it tends to jam up a little bit, and I want the tassel to form a cone shape overall, so I need to start increasing the width. So now I'm going to change the stitch slightly, so I'm going to put on the same 4 seed beads to start with, then our next feature bead, and then 1 seed bead. So I'm starting exactly the same way as before, back up through the feature bead, and then I'm going to put on a seed bead before I pass back up the core. I just need to make sure I'm in the right place in respect of the previous stitch, which is this one here. So it's up 3 below and 1 above. And that just holds the stitch a little bit proud. Right, let's do another one. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Pop our next bead on. Back up through the feature bead. Put on a seed bead. Make sure I'm in the right place on the core up 3 plus 1. Right, I'm going to do another 5 stitches like this, and then I'm going to increase this bead count here of this single extra bead to 2 beads. I'll be back to you once I've done a little section of that so you can see how it starts to develop. Now I've come back to you slightly earlier than I anticipated because I was finding that the beads as they were going up needed more than just one extra seed bead because they're so wide. Can you see there? It's pushing out against the core. So this particular one I put on 4, came back up through and tried with just one extra seed bead here, and it was too tight. So I've put on 2, and I've adapted all the following stitches to put on 2. So I'm making the next stitch now, so it's 4, my feature bead and 1. And I'm putting on 2 seed beads rather than that extra 1. And I'm going up through 3 plus 1 above. Move it to the side as we normally do. I'm going to make probably 2 or 3 more stitches like that, and then I might have to swap to actually having 3 beads here, depending on how the tassel is developing and how the beads themselves are sitting. I'm going to do up to about here and come back to you and show you the progress. So I've got to within 8 or 10 beads of the top of the strand, and you can see it started to widen out. That's partly due to using larger beads and partly because I've been working with 3 beads. So it's down 4, put on the feature, anchor, and then back up, and 3 beads before I pass up through the 4 beads of the core, and that's helped to push everything outwards a little bit. Now the next few beads I'm going to put on, I'll bring them into shot, are bigger still. So I don't think I need to increase that little run of 3 beads to 4 beads. I'm going to continue with the same bead sequence and work up to the underside of the feature bead, and then I'll be back to you to show you the next stage. So here we are at the top of the core beads. My needle has just emerged from the top core bead of the sequence we put on to start with. Now that's the last bead I put on, and you can see I've passed it all through 1, 2, 3, 4 beads. Now the tassel is quite full, but at the top it looks a little bit weak where the core joins the tassel top, and that's what these extra 4 beads are for. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on 4 beads, but just utilising those top 3 core beads for each stitch. Now although my thread has got a little bit shorter, this is still quite tangly when it catches the thread. So just for this bit I'm going to use a little trick and put the majority of the tassel inside a plastic bag, and that way it doesn't catch on your thread all the time. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 through a bead, on with my anchor bead, back through. I'm going to put on 3 seed beads, and this time I'm just going to go up 3. 1, 2, 3, and that's the top 3. Well, that obviously didn't work because it caught on the back instead of the bead, so I'll take the bag out of the way for the moment. So that's our first of our top cluster done. Now I'm going to put one on in a square shape, and I think because this is quite angular, I'm just going to put 3 seed beads on, then a keeper bead, a stopper bead, back through, and I'm just going to put 2 on, 2 size 10 before I go up through the 3 of the core. Make sure that's pulled in neatly, that's it, and it's starting to fill out the top. Now let's do another one. I want to make this one a bit shorter still, so I'm going to go with just 2 above my stopper bead rather, and I'll put on 2 before I go up through the 3 of the core. Just make sure this thread pulls into the right place. It's so easy to get tangled at this stage, it's a shame because you're nearly there. And let's put one more on, so 1, 2. So we're just trying to make a cluster at the top, so there's no right or wrong bead count, it's whatever looks right. And I'm going to put on 2. Now I've really got to dig for this top 3 beads of the core. There we go. And this is where it's going to tangle. That little plastic bag trick actually does work, or if you wrap cling film around the lower beads, that will keep them in more abeyance of your will. Okay, and I'm going to pass up through the tassel top bead. Let's have a look. Yeah, that's made a nice cluster at the top. There's actually room inside those top 3 size 8 beads if I wanted to add more, but I think that's enough at the top. Now all I need to do is add the loop at the top. Now I'm going to take off the keeper bead because it is so easy to catch the needle through the knot on the keeper bead, and then you can't remove the keeper bead. Now we can do something fancy at the top, but I'm just going to keep it a really plain loop. I think 1 size 8 seed bead, and I'm going to delve in. Do I want another pearl above? No, I don't think I do. A little crystal. Perhaps we'll put the crystal on. Yeah, that's okay. And then I need 50 of these. 50 seems to make a reasonable size loop. Now I've used a random selection of beads. You can use all the same, and it works particularly well with oval beads. Now I did a project very similar to this for Preciosa about 5 years ago, and it's available on their website if you want some written instructions with diagrams to do this type of tassel. And I've put the link for that project underneath the video screen. Now here's my 50 beads, or 50-ish, and I'm going to come back through the crystal bead and the size 8 to make sure everything is pulled up nice and tight. I'm going to go back down through the tassel top bead And I really need to make sure that everything is pulled up to the top of the spiral rope. There's a bit of gap there at the moment. Right. Now I've got very little thread left here. Normally I'd go all the way to the bottom of the core, all the way back again, and up to here where I'd finish off the thread. But this is only going to be possible to go all the way down to the bottom. So I'm going to thread all the way down to the bottom of the core and finish off the thread back there. And then I'm going to reinforce this loop with my keeper bead thread. I'll be back to you when I've done that. And here is the finished tassel. Now I've been around the loop here at least 3 times, I think actually 4 times, to make sure it's nice and firm. And I've also brought the thread end down from there and finished it off in the main section here of the core, just to make sure there's another thread coming down through the top bead and into the core to make it nice and firm. But there's our finished tassel. You can see how by extending the stitches to make them stick out more and increasing the size of the beads, we've got that nice tapered effect, and it feels gorgeous. Now this is the one I showed you in the introduction, and you can see now how I've graduated from small leaves up to big leaves. And here, because they are top hole beads, they're just on loops of thread rather than sticks of thread, but the loops get slowly bigger as I go towards the top to accommodate the larger bead and also to make it stick out a little bit more. So that's 2 spiral rope tassels made from odds and ends, mixed beads and a little bit of patience. Thank you for watching, and I hope you give it a go. They are absolutely gorgeous when they're complete.